So we're here to talk through the statue park puzzle by Serkan. It's got what he called a polarization theme. You can see what that means is there's a whole set of white clues that are all together, or black clues that are all together. In a statue park, more often the black clues are really useful, but I see some channels, like in this whole space of the grid, there will probably end up being some white cells, and the white cells will have to get out. So I'm actually drawing at the start. A cell like this, if we're black, would join 6 things together. That's no good. In a pentomino puzzle, the largest shape will be 5 large, so these are white. You can actually extend all the way out and keep going for a while and saying these are all white, and extending out from these clues. We can put our first placement in the grid, which is a V. That actually comes, let's look in this corner. At the start, we might have been able to say this cell could be black, making another V, but that's no longer true. These two, if they did not connect to these two, would have to come 1, 2, 4 total, and then if they take another one, they're going to join to this shape. So this has to be part of the pair right above it, and that means it has to take the cell that is the last cell that can potentially join them. So we make a W in doing that. Mark these white cells where we can. These blacks have to start to come out, and we'll see that we have some whites that need to keep going as well. Looks like we have enough set up that the I shape is absolutely required at this time. There are these whites that are going to be coming out, so we've got a shape like this that's starting to form. This is an interesting set of clues, and I think one thing that's interesting about it is we know that this clue must connect to this clue. Whichever of these cells is taken, these join up, and this clue must connect to this clue. Whichever of these cells is taken, they join up. So that's going to make 1, 2, 3 be connected with a 4th, potentially 5th to make them connected. But recognize we can't also then join to this clue, that now we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, too large of a shape. There's no 2x4 bounding box clue that uses those cells. And so there's a deduction, which is that the top cell here and not this cell here is a connection coming out from this to this. I see that this shape is now going to be a T or a P. That's probably going to be useful as we get further in the grid, depending on how the solve goes, but for now there's no more we can do there until the other shape of that pair of T or P is put somewhere. But we've made an F, and coming back to this shape of 3 cells, there's a 4th we can take, and the I is in the grid, so take this to make the L. So 5 sure pentominoes, 1 optional pentomino. I think we're going to have to come up to this clue cluster and say a few things. First, where it starts with 2 cells, what I can see is it's possible it connects to here, it's possible it doesn't, but this cell looks pretty important to be part of any of those shapes. If this were white, these 2 would form a 3rd and 4th, a shape like this, but then either of the optional cells it would have for it would be 5, 6, or 5, 6 would make something too large. And so this cell must be part of whatever's happening, and we get to something like this. Another thing that will mean, look at the 2 options for what forms. It looks like there's a P choice, or this connects up and makes a Z choice. In the Z choice, we have white cells that come all the way around like this. In the P choice, we have a white cell here that comes down. In both of those scenarios, these are white cells. And while I can't put in the black cells that are for sure in these 3, I can put the white cells over here in the ones I know there, and that actually helps isolate another pentomino. It's in a 2x4 bounding box, so it would be an L, Y, or N, and the L is already in the grid, so this will have to be a Y or an N, and the Y or N both use this cell. So we'll just mark those options in. We're at a point where we probably can't do too much in this space yet. We could almost start to think about pentomino count, but I'm actually wondering if there's a way to mentally map some of these spaces to get clues in. And one thing I'm thinking about where I have a TP over here is that the option with a P up top is probably limiting. It would put a P and T immediately in the grid, and so let's think about what happens with the rest. If this is a P shape, this is white, these 2 cells are black, and when this is black, we've got to put a white over to the left. So we're going to have a 3x3 shape It's got a 3 strong edge. It can't be a V. First off, that's already in the grid, so it's got to use this cell. It can't take this cell because that would be another P shape, which we just had up here, and I can't use both of these cells because that's another T shape. So there aren't a lot of 3 by 3 shapes left that have 3 in a row. Actually, P, T, and U are the only ones there, and this can't be a U because this cell is white. So this being P, making that being T, leaves just T and P for this third pentomino as well, and that's no good. So we're going to let's go ahead and call this a Z shape, which is the other option that we see for it. This black cell is going to have to come down. If it fully dodges this cell, it must form a W, but that's not going to be possible because the W is already in the grid. So it's going to come like this. The V is already in the grid, and the F is already in the grid. So we have a case where this is a U, a T, or a Y. That doesn't seem to give us too much information, but what we can now do is see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pentominoes placed. We're going to need to get 12 total shapes in the grid, so there's going to be 1 up here, and there are going to be 2 somewhere in this space. So let's think about what's possible with those opportunities and maybe return to one of the, it's not really a meme, but at least a common thing with a pentomino puzzle is there's this one outlier that is going to get to be a sticking point in a lot of puzzles. This X shape is in a 3 by 3 box, but it's fairly compact, and there's no X that's possible up here. It's not that shape. It's not down here. I see exactly one place the X can go. So when you get stuck in a puzzle, like I just was, like what's next, always say, can I put the X in? And on the other extreme, sometimes putting in a clue like an I, if the puzzle's compact in different ways, will be helpful. We've got to get out of this corner with the white cells, so I couldn't start another shape here. So this cell being used would form a Z, but isolate things. This cell being used would form a V shape. That's no good. And so if we need to put 2 pentominoes in this corner, it actually looks like the X and U come in together. And we've just identified those. That means this isn't a U shape, this is a Y or a T. We've got to figure out where the other large option goes. The N and Y look to be somewhat limiting. Look up here, like this could be a 2 by 4 shape using this 4 long run. But it has to be a Y if it's that shape. It can't be an N. There's no way to cut in. And if this is a Y, making this to be the N, we again isolate cells in the corner. So the pentomino that goes in this white area is not a 2 by 4 bounded pentomino. It's a 3 by something bounded pentomino. So this has to be a 2 by 4. And so this is the Y. This is the N. This is now our 3 by something bounded thing. And we only have 2 shapes to place, which are a T and P. And there's no T that goes here. There is a P that goes here. And so when we recognize that we've got a limitation, we finally come back to this observation that we had here and complete that the T is on the right side. The P is over here on the left, and we finish this puzzle. So it really starts from some standardish steps, thinking about compact black spaces, getting whites to flow out, single pentominoes that then isolate to single other pentominoes to sort of get the start. But it ends up with 2 things that look to be key. The first was exploring limitations around a TP option here and the placements at the top, at least on my solving path. And then it was counting up to 12 pentominoes and using the limited open space left to make sure we could get 12 things in. And knowing that there was roughly 1 up here and 2 down here, we could then go through the most unique pentominoes left, particularly the X, and get to the finish. So hopefully this video gives you a sense of how to approach these pentomino-style puzzles, particularly Statue Park, and a little bit of insights to this particular group from Serkan. We'll see you again soon.